Welcome to another episode of Gaby's Cheating Stories. Please subscribe and share. Thank you. It seems like it was yesterday when I met Will. I never expected that moment would change everything. It was at a mutual friend's party, something casual. Will, with his charming smile and calm yet confident demeanor, stood out even in a room full of strangers. I was there, nervously sipping my drink, not expecting much more than small talk. But when he walked up to me, everything seemed to quiet down. We talked about life, about our dreams, and somehow, our conversation flowed as though we had known each other for years. Will was an architect, and at 32, he had already made a name for himself in the city. He talked about his passion for design and the challenges of working in a world where everything was constantly changing. I was drawn to him, how he was so grounded, yet so driven. 2 months later, we went on our first date. Dinner at a small Italian restaurant, his hand brushing mine across the table. That night, I knew he was the one. Will made me feel seen, heard, and safe. He made me feel like I could be anything I wanted to be. 6 months later, we moved in together, and it was easy, natural. We fit into each other's worlds like pieces of a puzzle. He was my rock, and I was his quiet strength. Our love grew effortlessly, and just 2 years after we met, Will asked me to marry him on a rainy afternoon in Central Park. I said yes, without hesitation. Married life was everything I had hoped for. Will and I were partners, in every sense of the word. We built our little world together, our cozy apartment, our weekends spent exploring new places, laughing over silly things. He made me feel cherished, and I made sure he knew how much I loved him. We were happy, genuinely happy. I had always wanted children, and so had Will. We talked about it often, dreaming of what it would be like to have a little one running around the house. There was always this unspoken understanding between us that we'd start a family soon after we were married. But it wasn't as easy as we thought. We tried. For 2 years, we tried, but every test and every doctor's appointment felt like another weight added to our already full hearts. Will was infertile. It was something he refused to talk about, something we didn't really know how to address. I could see the way it affected him, though. The sadness in his eyes when he saw a baby on the street, the way he'd retreat into himself after another failed attempt. But I didn't want to leave him. I loved him too much. And so, we tried different options, fertility treatments, specialists. But nothing worked. Our dream of becoming parents felt farther and farther away. Even with the weight of our struggles, I was still holding on to hope. I kept believing that somehow, we would figure it out. Our wedding felt like the perfect day, a day where everything was possible. We had our families and friends around us, the laughter of children running around us, and the love we shared was more than I ever imagined. But deep inside, there was a quiet fear I couldn't shake. Would we ever get our happy ending? Will promised me we would. He promised me everything would be okay. He told me that no matter what happened, we would face it together. But as we danced at our reception, his face didn't match his words. His smile was warm, but there was a distant sadness in his eyes, as if the future we had always dreamed of was slipping farther away. I couldn't help but notice the way his hand lingered on mine, gripping just a little too tightly, as if holding on to the very thing he feared losing. I tried to push away the feeling of impending loss. That night was supposed to be about joy, about celebrating what we had built, about looking forward to the future. And I wanted to feel that hope with him. We had promised each other forever, after all. But as I watched the people around us dancing, laughing, and celebrating, I couldn't shake the nagging thought that our dream of having a family, of creating something beautiful together, was slipping through our fingers. The whole day felt like a delicate balance between the perfect celebration of our love and the deep, painful reality we were trying so hard to ignore. I felt the tension in every hug, every toast, every moment when someone asked when we were going to have children. It wasn't a question that was asked maliciously, but the weight of it was undeniable. We had been married for a while now. Our time was supposed to be now, but we were still stuck, still waiting for a miracle that was never coming. In the days that followed the wedding, I couldn't help but think of all the promises we had made to each other. Will had always been so confident in his ability to overcome any obstacle. I had believed him. I still wanted to believe him. But every test, every doctor's appointment felt like another confirmation that something wasn't working. We tried to keep up appearances, to hold on to the hope that it would all come together, but every time we found ourselves at the edge of another disappointment, I felt the weight of the silent fracture growing between us. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to face it. But with each passing day, I could see the sadness in Will's eyes, and I could feel him pulling away. It wasn't just about the baby anymore. It was about something deeper. He was no longer the same man who promised me forever on our wedding day. He had become someone quieter, someone who buried his pain under work, under silence. But I loved him, and I wanted to believe that our story wasn't over. There had to be a way forward, there had to be. We just had to keep trying. I held on to the hope that one day, we'd find our way back to each other, to the dream we once shared so freely. But deep inside, a part of me was beginning to wonder if the life we had planned was just that, a dream. A dream that might never come true. And so, I tried harder. I pushed aside my doubts, clung to the belief that love would carry us through. After all, we had faced so much together already. We could overcome this too, right? The distance between us was subtle at first. It started with small things, Will staying late at work, me spending more time at the clinic. The intimacy that once came so naturally began to fade. We weren't fighting, but we weren't connecting either. There were no more spontaneous kisses, no late-night conversations. I threw myself into my work. I loved being a veterinarian, and the animals I cared for gave me a sense of purpose. But even then, I felt this emptiness, this ache that only Will's love could fill, but he was too lost in his own sorrow to notice me anymore. And as each month passed with no good news about getting pregnant, I started to feel like I was losing him. We were still living together, still going through the motions, but we weren't together anymore. It was around the time that the cracks in my marriage started to deepen that John came into my life. He was young, fresh-faced, eager to prove himself, and completely in love with animals. He had just started his internship at the clinic, and from the moment he walked in, there was a new energy in the air. He reminded me of myself when I first started, passionate, full of hope, ready to take on the world. He was 28, just a few years younger than me, and from the very beginning, there was something about him that was easy. His enthusiasm was contagious, and it wasn't long before I found myself looking forward to the days when I would work with him. He made the long hours more bearable. I would often catch him making silly jokes to the animals, talking to them like they were his best friends, and even though I knew he meant well, there was something about his warmth that made everything feel just a little bit lighter. The first few weeks were simple. We worked together, sharing stories of our childhoods, our dreams, our love for animals. He had this genuine way of seeing the world that I admired, and it wasn't just his work ethic or knowledge about animals that stood out. It was the way he approached life itself, open, unafraid to feel, to be vulnerable. It was something I had forgotten about myself. In my marriage with Will, I had become so consumed by the idea of what we needed to fix, the ache of trying to become parents, that I lost sight of the simple things that used to bring me joy. John reminded me of that joy. And as our friendship blossomed, I began to confide in him more. I told him about Will and the struggles we had been facing, about the hurt that seemed to constantly shadow our marriage. I didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to admit it, but the pain had been building up for so long that when John asked how I was doing, I found myself pouring out my heart to him. I told him about the infertility, the endless tests, the silent distance between Will and me. I never wanted to burden him with my pain, but he listened. He listened like no one had in a long time. And in a way, his understanding made everything feel just a little bit less heavy. The more we worked together, the more I realized how much I missed that connection, how much I craved having someone who saw me for me, not just as a wife, or as a veterinarian who couldn't seem to have a child. John didn't see my failures, he saw my heart, my passion, my care for the animals. And slowly, I began to look forward to our time together more than I had ever expected. We started spending extra time together, staying late at the clinic, talking about everything and nothing. It wasn't just about work anymore. It was about life, about dreams, about the way we both longed to make a difference in the world. There was something raw, something unspoken between us that I couldn't deny. John wasn't just a colleague anymore. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that I was just getting caught up in the energy he brought to my life, but deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. There was a connection between us, a spark I couldn't ignore. And as much as I tried to distance myself from it, to remind myself of my vows to Will, it felt impossible to not be drawn to John in ways I couldn't explain. One afternoon, as we were working together in the back room of the clinic, John said something that stopped me in my tracks. "You know," he said, his voice softer than usual, "sometimes people forget to take care of themselves. I think that's why I admire you so much. You're always so focused on the animals, on making sure they're okay, that you forget to take care of yourself." His words hit me harder than I expected. I had never really thought about it that way. I had spent so much of my time pouring into Will, into trying to make our dream of a family come true, that I had lost sight of my own needs. John's honesty was like a mirror to my soul, one I hadn't looked into in a long time. In those quiet moments, with him, I realized how much I had been neglecting myself. And when John smiled, that easy, warm smile that always seemed to put me at ease, I couldn't help but feel a pull, a longing for something more. Something I hadn't felt in years. It scared me. I didn't want to go down that road, but the way he made me feel, seen, understood, alive, was something I hadn't realized I was missing. In those early days with John, I never intended for anything to happen. But I couldn't ignore the fact that he was there, in a way that hadn't been for a long time. And the longer we spent together, the more I found myself looking forward to our talks, to the way my heart fluttered just being near him. I was living in a quiet storm, and I didn't know how to stop it from building up. But what I didn't know was that the storm was only beginning. And soon, I would have to face the consequences of letting my guard down in a way I hadn't even realized was possible. One evening, Will came to pick me up from work, something he had done only a handful of times since we'd gotten married. I introduced him to John, and the three of us chatted briefly. Will seemed friendly, but there was something distant about him. John, on the other hand, seemed eager to connect with Will, but I could tell the tension between them was palpable. That night, when Will and I got home, he was quieter than usual. He didn't say much, but I could feel the distance growing even more. The silence between us was thick. It wasn't supposed to happen. I know that now, but at the time, I couldn't stop it. That night, after another long shift at the clinic, John and I found ourselves in the back room alone again. We had been talking for hours, about everything, life, work, the future. The conversation felt like it always did, comfortable, easy. But this time, there was something different in the air. I couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the exhaustion, the loneliness I had buried for so long, or maybe it was the way John had been looking at me, his eyes full of something I hadn't seen in a while, desire, understanding, connection. It felt like he was seeing me in a way that no one had, not in years. He stepped closer, and before I even realized what was happening, his hand was on my arm. It wasn't a forceful gesture, but it was enough to send a jolt of electricity through me. I could feel the heat of his touch, the way it contrasted with the cold of the clinic's sterile walls. My heart was pounding in my chest, a drumbeat that drowned out everything else. He looked at me, his face inches from mine, and for a moment, I thought he might say something. But instead, he kissed me, softly at first, tentative, as if he was waiting for me to pull away. But I didn't. I didn't move, and before I could stop myself, I kissed him back. The kiss was all-consuming. It was like I had been starved for affection, for connection, for something to fill the emptiness inside of me. And in that moment, it felt good. It felt right, or at least, that's what I told myself. I knew it wasn't supposed to happen. I knew it was a betrayal of everything I had with Will, everything I had promised. But the truth is, I didn't think about Will in that moment. I only thought about the way John's lips felt against mine, the way his hands gently cupped my face as if I was something precious. We didn't stop there. I didn't stop it. It wasn't a passionate affair in the beginning, not like something you read about in novels. It was quieter, slower, an emotional connection that somehow turned physical. And even as I was in it, a part of me kept telling myself to pull away, that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But I couldn't. With John, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. He was there for me in a way Will hadn't been, not in the last few years, not since the tests and the failed attempts. The guilt was there, of course. I could feel it like a weight pressing against my chest every time we were together, but it didn't stop me. I told myself that it was just this once, just this one time to feel something real, something different. I thought I could live with the lie, that I could carry the burden of this secret and not let it destroy everything. But I was wrong. And the worst part, I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell Will. I couldn't even tell myself what I had become. I was caught between the person I used to be, the woman who had loved her husband with all her heart, and the woman I had become, the one who was slowly losing herself in someone else. I couldn't escape it. The affair wasn't about love. It wasn't about finding a solution to our problems. It was an escape from the pain of my marriage, a desperate attempt to fill the void that had grown between Will and me. But deep down, I knew it was only making things worse. I just didn't know how to stop. And I was too afraid to face the truth, that I had already crossed a line I could never come back from. I was pregnant. But it wasn't Will's child, it was John's. The realization hit me like a truck, and for weeks, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't tell Will. I couldn't hurt him that way. But as the weeks went on, it became harder and harder to ignore the truth. I was carrying John's child, not Will's. My heart ached with guilt, but there was something else, a strange sense of clarity. I had to make a choice. I had already made it, deep down. The love I had once had for Will was fading, replaced by a connection I never thought I'd find with someone else. The day Will found out, I felt my world crumble beneath me. It wasn't like the movies, where everything came crashing down in a dramatic confrontation. No, it was quieter, more suffocating. He wasn't yelling. He didn't need to. The look on his face was enough to unravel me completely. I had been trying to keep everything hidden, to maintain some semblance of the life we had built. But Will had always been observant, more than I ever gave him credit for. He noticed the subtle shifts, the small things, the way I'd started coming home later, the empty spaces between our conversations, the quiet detachment in my eyes. He confronted me late one evening. I had just come back from a long day at the clinic, the weight of everything still heavy on my shoulders. I barely had time to take off my coat before he was standing in front of me, his eyes locked onto mine, sharp with something I couldn't place. "I know," he said simply. There was no anger in his voice, just an eerie calm. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My heart raced, my throat closed up. I couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe for a moment. What do you mean?" I stammered, though I knew exactly what he was talking about. "The affair," he said. His eyes didn't leave mine. "I know about you and John." My stomach twisted into knots. I couldn't escape his gaze. I wanted to deny it, to say it wasn't true, to tell him how sorry I was, but I couldn't. I had no excuse. No explanation that could ever make this right. I wanted to reach out, to try and fix it, but something inside of me had already broken beyond repair. The guilt, the crushing guilt, was unbearable, but even then, there was no going back. Not now. Not after everything. "I never meant for it to happen," I whispered, my voice breaking. I was lost, Will. I didn't know what else to do. My words came out in pieces, like shards of glass. But none of it mattered. He was already pulling away, closing off in a way I had never seen before. Will's face was unreadable now, and that hurt more than anything. The man who had always been my rock, my confidant, was now a stranger to me. "You broke my trust, Leah," he said, his voice so quiet I could barely hear it. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this." I didn't say anything. What could I say? There was nothing left. No words could undo what had been done. And as he walked out of the room, I stood there, frozen in the silence we had created. Everything had fallen apart in an instant. My marriage, my life, nothing would ever be the same again. The days after Will left felt like a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every moment I spent alone felt like a piece of me was being chipped away. It wasn't just the loss of Will, though that was devastating. It was the loss of everything we had tried to build together. The future we had once dreamed of, the family we had wanted, all of it was gone. Will filed for divorce a week later, and I didn't fight it. I knew I didn't deserve to. He was right to walk away. What had I given him, really? He deserved so much more than what I had turned into. The guilt was suffocating, but there was nothing left to fix. I had destroyed everything. As for John and me, we continued with the lie we had built together. He was there, offering me comfort, offering a future that seemed like it could fill the void left by Will. But even with John by my side, I couldn't shake the emptiness. I was living a different life now, one I hadn't expected, one I hadn't wanted. I had lost Will, and I had lost myself in the process. I couldn't go back to the clinic. I couldn't face the judgment in John's eyes, the pity that I knew would be there eventually. He tried to make things better, tried to fill the space that had opened up in my life, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to erase the pain I felt every single day. Months passed, and life went on. I eventually became pregnant, but not with Will's child. It was John's. The irony of it didn't escape me. I had broken my marriage to be with him, and now I was carrying his child. In the beginning, I convinced myself that it would be enough, that this was how things were supposed to be. But deep inside, I knew it wasn't true. I couldn't forget the man I had lost, the love I had destroyed. John and I opened the veterinary clinic together. It was a small victory in a life that had felt like nothing but failure. We tried to build something new, something that could justify the decisions I had made, but even in the midst of this new life, I felt the weight of the past hanging over me. It was like trying to breathe underwater. No matter how much I tried to move forward, I was still drowning. Will, for his part, had disappeared. I didn't see him again, not after the divorce papers were signed. I wondered if he was happier, if he had found someone who could give him what I couldn't. I hoped he had. But all I could think about was how I had failed him, how I had failed us. The day John and I held our baby in our arms, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. There was joy, yes, but there was also a deep ache, a realization that the family I had dreamed of wasn't the one I had now. It was as if I had traded one dream for another, but neither of them felt whole. Neither of them felt real. And Will would always be a part of me, even if I never saw him again. He had been my first love, my promise, my future. And in the quiet moments, when the world was still, I would remember the way his hand had felt in mine, the warmth of his smile, and I would wonder if I had ever truly deserved him.
If you like this story and felt connected, please subscribe. Thanks for watching Gaby's cheating stories. See you on the next one.